Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Welcome to another Project Barakah podcast special with myself, Sadia, Ustada Isra, and Mufti Moinul. Ustada Isra is an instructor at the Quran Institute in the Arabic department, and Mufti Moinul Abu Hamza is also an instructor in the Quran Institute at the Ummatics department. Today, inshallah, we're going to be starting a new series, which is called The Virtues of Al-Baqarah, the 100 of Surah Al-Baqarah, which is a natural progression from Surah Al-Fatiha, which we have been covering in the previous episodes. So over to you, Ustad Moinul.
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Wassalatu wassalamu ala Sayyidina Muhammad wa ala ali baytihi at-tayyibin at-tahirin wa li ashabi ajma'in. Allahumma la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alimul hakim. Allahumma 'allimna ma yanfa'una wanfa'na bima 'allamtana وزدنا علما وارنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وارنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه وجعلنا ممن يستمعون القول فيتبعون احسنه وادخلنا برحمتك في عبادك الصالحين. Amma ba'd. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, dear brothers and sisters. Jazakumullahu khair for everyone, especially Ustada Isra and Ustada Sadia for making the time. We do this as a gift to our ummah to genuinely engage with the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in the month of Ramadan. This is called the Shahrul Quran. It's the month that we actually give the Quran a revisit for a reflection of our personal circumstances, not only as individuals, but the state of our ummah. No denying that we're all thinking about the state of the ummah, like what is happening to us. That if we are people of haqq and we have the truth and we have the solutions for mankind, why are we in the state that we are in? Why is there so much conflict in the world? Why is there so much division? Why is there so much sectarianism? Why is it that sometimes it seems that there are more problems between Muslims and Muslims than there are between non-Muslims and Muslims, right? So it's a very complicated situation. They say you can choose your friends, but you can't choose your family. And in this instance, you can't choose your ummah. Not as long as you want to stay Muslim. The Prophet ﷺ said that he who says that the people, the ummah is destroyed, is actually he is the one who is destroyed, or even he's the more destroyed, right? That he's the problem. So we remain cautiously optimistic, and yet nonetheless optimistic we should be. And the reason is because the struggles between haqq and batil, as-sira'a bayna al-haqqi wal-batil, this is not new. This is central to the Quranic narrative that takes place throughout the beginning of time to the end of time. Nothing will escape as-sira'a bayna al-haqqi wal-batil. Nothing will escape this battle between truth and falsehood. Only the characters will change, the plays will change, the situations and circumstances, but nonetheless that particular conflict will always take place. Now, we've studied Surah Al-Fatiha, and we called it Mufti Moinul's Odyssey, and it was more like a exploration of all things we could think of from all the different tafasir. Zahratun min kulli bustan, a flower from every garden. We tried to take a bit of Ar-Razi, a bit of Tafsir al-Jalalain. We took from Qurtubi, we took from Ibn Kathir, we took from Maulana Maududi, we took from the classical, we took from the contemporary, we took from the revivalist. We were doing this because we just wanted to have a feel of all the various dimensions. There were very philosophical, mantiqi points about Surah Al-Fatiha from Ar-Razi, and yet there were very kind of issues that were based on purely narrations, of Ibn Abbas and others, based on those who do tafsir that is based on the athar. So there's the various traditions of tafsir, and what I want to introduce now is our new journey. We're starting a new journey in this Mufti Moinul's Odyssey, which is Mi'atul Ula min al-Baqarah, the 100 of al-Baqarah, Bina'ul Ummah al-Iman. The building of the Ummah upon the foundations of Iman, right? And how we're going to discuss the Muslim Ummah from a civilizational perspective. How can we reconstruct ourselves as this more larger entity today commonly described as the ummatic concern, the ummatic vision, and ummatic understanding, meaning to reimagine the ummah being beyond just spiritual unity. So, for example, we're all fasting, right? And we can sense the feeling that I don't think even the fasiq is going to smoke in front of everyone. I don't think even many people, and they won't sit in open coffee bars, and coffee shops and maqbah and all these. So especially in the Arab lands, it's not as common.
Yes.
And the reason why is because there's a spiritual unity that we all know. We're all praying Taraweeh, we're all celebrating Eid, maybe on a different day, but we're all celebrating Eid. We're all fasting, we're all doing Hajj together and all these rituals. But there is a unity that is a political unity, right? As an entity that symbolically, at the very least, actually ended today on 3rd of March 1924, right? That this is the way the Prophet ﷺ envisaged what would happen after his death. When he mentioned كانت روي عن رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم, is narrated that he said كانت بنو إسرائيل تسوسهم الأنبياء, that the Banu Israel, they used to be governed ساس يسوس سياسة by the Anbiya. So the prophets did politics, clear cut, did politics. Yeah. And when they did politics, كلما هلك نبي خلفه نبي. Every time one prophet would die, another prophet would replace him. وإنه فإنه لا نبي بعدي. And there will be no prophet after me. Subhanallah, the Sahaba, when they heard this, is like, فَمَاذَا تَأْمُرُونَ? Like, if there's no prophet after you, what do you expect us to do? He said, فُو بِبَيْعَةٍ. Yeah, and he said basically, give bay'ah. Yeah, ثُمَّ تَكُونُ خُلَفَاءُ يَكْثُرُونَ or تَكْثُرُونَ. That there will be many rulers, Muslim rulers, legitimate rulers that will come after me. And then they said, مَاذَا تَأْمُرُونَ? What should we do? And what do you command us to do? He said, give them the legitimate, the pledge of allegiance, bay'ah, based on them being khulafai. So you don't give bay'ah to a tyrant, to a taghi, to a kafir, to a person who is not even implementing Islam. This is to an imam, not just any old hukam or hakim, but someone who is actually a legitimate ruler. But the point being is we need to have these thoughts, because we see that Ramadan is full of this major juxtaposition of good iftars and nice suhoor, and people are putting up decorations, and yet we see more and more devastation within the Muslim lands, within the Ummah of Rasulullah. How would Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam look at the Ummah's situation and fast and be content that, yeah, this is just happening over there, I'm just breaking my fast with my family? Does this sound to anyone who has any proximity or knowledge of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? So what the aim is, inshallah ta'ala, that this al-miyatul ula min al-Baqarah, right, bina al-ummah al-Iman, this whole reconstruction of the Islamic civilization in our minds. It's like if I say to you, for example, you don't have to be some expert. If I say to any one of you two, family, it conjures up an image of what family is, isn't it? Right?
Absolutely.
Now, sometimes there may be a child who was an orphan or wasn't, raised in an orphanage his whole life. You say family to him, he can't imagine it. He's orphaned from the idea, not just from the reality, but the idea of family. He wonders, what is family? What does it mean to really, you see? He has some vague notions maybe of family. Family are the people that I grew up with in the orphanage. You see? Yes, his concept is based on his growth. So our concept of global unity, unfortunately, is being informed by the orphanage that we are living in, which is a stateless ummah. So it's hard for us to imagine if there's someone who's not married, right? If you ask them what is marriage, they have some vague notions of what marriage is, right? Some true, some untrue, some pure fantasy. They won't know. Once they get married, then you realize, oh my God, right? There's actually a lot more to it. And some things I thought were difficult were easy, and so on. But my point I'm saying is these ideas, even through television, you have some sense of, okay, I understand what family is, even if it's a wrong understanding. You have an idea of what it means to be, a married couple. If someone says community, even amongst non-Muslim societies, they have, a neighborhood watch, and they have community concerns, and they have, so you get ideas of polity, community, mobilization of people. You have, like, you may not hear a lot about enjoining good, forbidding the evil, but you've definitely heard about civic duty, freedom, my rights,
Yes.
their rights, this amendment, that amendment. You may not know the Islamic hudud, the huquq al-ibad, the rights of the human individual, but at the very least you'll know these things because you're growing up in an orphanage of a stateless ummah, right? And as a result of that, we want to obviously invigorate, revive, renew, and get people to start thinking about and remapping the idea of what it means, because an ummah in this century and in this year today cannot be watching Umar series and projecting that on to now and just saying that's not how it's going to work. Much rethinking and ijtihadat. Obviously the muhkam qat'iyat laws, they stay the same, they don't change, but clearly the reality has changed so significantly, you need to rethink. Do you see? When we talk about the role of women, a large portion of the woman's life was spent just, cooking, cleaning, providing, and all of these things in the house. And even now we say, okay, in terms of roles, this would be a major role for her in as a family breadwinner, homemaker. She would be the homemaker. But no one can deny at the same time that the reality of women in 2026 and in this century has changed. Not the fundamental realities, but the fact that what would take 3 hours to prepare, come on, people, if you go to villages, I've seen them making a fire, I got bored. Meaning the time it took to light a fire, I've been to really kind of rural, very kind of village, right? Not like modern village, with aircon and satellites, satellite TV. You'll see that they're still throwing things in, starting a fire. That takes half an hour, and getting the thing and plucking the chickens. What are you talking about? You can buy chicken pre-roasted, cooked halal now. I'm not like advertising it, but I saw an advert recently. You can get roast chicken, halal, done, everything ready to eat. So the difference in technology and in devices means that a lot of the automation allows more women have more time. Now that time can be spent watching TikTok, gossiping, reading mental health memes on Canva, arguing, hating men, or it could be learning the deen, engaging with the ummah, reviving the ummah, learning how to kind of mobilize the community. It can be geared towards those things. So the woman in this time that we live in, what she can do is she had this role that Allah gave her, she has this public role of enjoining good, forbidding the evil, can have a larger manifestation than maybe in other periods of time because of the time constraints and the facilities. So what we're looking at here is Surah Al-Baqarah. I don't think I'm going to cover anything of what I was going to cover, but I think it's good to just get some nice introductions, of this surah and how grand this surah is, right? Before we even get the fadail, notice the connection between Surah Al-Fatiha and Surah Al-Baqarah. Surah Al-Fatiha is your Surah 1, Surah 2. In the Surah Al-Fatiha, we say that this really covers Islam ijmalan. Ijmalan, meaning very, very broad brushstrokes without any detailing. There's no detail. There isn't a lot of detail being given here, and yet it's very, it covers so much meaning. But now Surah Al-Baqarah is what you call tafsilan, that now it starts to break down and specify. And one of the important things about Surah Al-Baqarah is that it was a Medinan verse, a Madani verse. And a lot of people need to know what a Medinan verse is, a Makki or Madani ayah, right? A Makki verse isn't a surah revealed in Mecca. Ustad Sadia. Sometimes people think that a Meccan verse was revealed in Mecca. It's revealed after the Hijrah. anything after the hijrah is called a Madani verse, even if you went back to Makkah, right? Do you see? Right? There's, I think, one ayah the Prophet got in Isra wal Miraj, which is neither Makki or Madani. Yeah, but it's a Medinan surah, and this Madani surah is in a state of power, that the Muslims now have civilization, the birth of a civilization, which is that Islam is now a dawlah, Islamiyah, is a society with all the laws fully flourishing, celebrated in the surah. إِذَا جَاءَ نَصْرُ اللَّهِ وَالْفَتْحُ وَرَأَيْتَ النَّاسَ يَدْخُلُونَ فِي دِينِ اللَّهِ أَفْوَاجًا. That when the victory comes and the conquest of Mecca, meaning we have now taken over, people are coming to Islam in droves, in comparison to a time where people were only trickling in, but the best people were trickling in. So this also shows you that in Makki verses, there are no ayat about nifaq. Interesting, no? In the Makki verses, there's no discussion, because you have to be madly in love with Allah and His Messenger to want to carry Islam. There's no benefits. But after the Madani verses, they start winning wars. You start having war booty called fay, and the fay is being distributed, and you're getting richer and fatter. So now some people are only pretending to be Muslims because of the collectivity and the benefits of being part of an ummah. And then all the ayat about nifaq immediately come in Surah Al-Baqarah. Right? Yes. There's so much to cover up. I don't want to say. I don't want to give it away right now. What I'll mention is only the connection. In Surah Al-Fatiha, you praise Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then humanity makes a plea. إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, in the form of a dua. Yeah? That to you only we worship and we seek help. And in that minute of seeking the awn of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, what happens? اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ. Oh Allah, guide us to the straight path. They say Surah Al-Baqarah is the jawab for that dua. اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ ألف لام ميم ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. That we ask Allah for guidance, and then all of a sudden Allah says, ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ فِيهِ. This is the book that there is no doubt. هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. You ask for hidayah, اهْدِنَا هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ. This is the guidance for the God-conscious people. So now, Surah Al-Baqarah is actually the answer to the cries of the Ummah. اهْدِنَا الصِّرَاطَ الْمُسْتَقِيمِ هُدًى لِلْمُتَّقِينَ ذَلِكَ الْكِتَابُ لَا رَيْبَ. So now you have this shift of now explaining, okay, what it means in very practical terms, right? So Surah Al-Baqarah, it will start actually introducing, what it means to be muttaqeen. How many verses? I don't know the exact number. That's for next week's class. But about 4, about 5, something like this. I think maybe 5 or 6 verses are about muttaqeen. What is a muttaq? What are the muttaqun? So at the beginning, you actually have what is called Islamic anthropology, meaning anthropology is the study of what does it mean to be a human being. What is a human being? What does it basically mean to be human? What does it mean to be human? So in this beginning of the surah, look how detailed it is. It tells you 6 verses for muttaqun, the believers, proper believers, God-fearing believers. And we're going to go through every single ayah and detail them, because this is a form of citizen of the state. This is also this is a type of person who lives under the banner of Islam. And then there's the second type of, which is the munafiq. The munafiq, shakhsun mulawwan, the multicolored, the chameleon that changes color every single situation that it goes into. Ya Rab, there are, I think, something like 12 or more ayat or more about the munafiq. And before that, Allah discusses the kafir. Yeah? إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ أَمْ لَمْ تُنذِرْهُمْ لَا يُؤْمِنُونَ. Basically 2 verses, only 2 verses for unbelievers. It's like, here's the unbelievers, this is what they are, finished.
Yes.
So only about 4 to 6 verses about muttaqun, the believers, 2 verses about kafirs, and an entire essay of what it means to be munafiq. Because now the sifting process has begun on working out who are the real believers, who are the ones who are just playing along, who are the ones who only stay with Islam when it's easy, and then when it's hard, they move away. Who are the ones who are only there? Because even now, we live in a situation of Makki and Madani. Makki in the sense that we are a stateless ummah. Madani in the sense that, to be honest, we have got many benefits for being a Muslim. And because of those benefits, we will go along with it as far as it supports our comfort levels. When it starts getting uncomfortable, then you really see who is the muttaqi. So I want everyone to know that Surah Al-Baqarah is an explanation of a ummah. Okay, so it's the ummah of Banu Israel. Just like we have an ummah, Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam has an ummah, they have an ummah under Musa alayhi salam. Yeah, and obviously other prophets visited them. And the ummah of Musa alayhi salam, they're called Banu Israel. And this Banu Israel, they are just like you have a Muslim that fails, a couple that fail. Many in the Quran it talks about how individuals fail, marital couples fail, talks about how families succeed and fail, right? Now it's talking about how nations fail, right? And it's talking about Banu Israel as a nation, okay? So if you want to now know غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ, the entire surah, pretty much, at least the first 100 ayahs, are about غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ. If you want to know وَلَا الضَّالِينَ, go to Ali Imran, because it's about the Nasara. So there, the وَلَا الضَّالِينَ is in this surah, and the Yahud, the غَيْرِ الْمَغْضُوبِ عَلَيْهِمْ, this is what this surah is going to explain. Yeah, that people who receive the truth and went against it. So I think I don't want to, as they say, overcook it. Yeah. What I'm going to do is I'm going to just leave that hang. Go ahead.
Just a quick question, Ustad. You know, on this surah, on Surah Al-Baqarah, you mentioned obviously Surah Al-Fatiha is the opening. Surah Al-Baqarah transitions quite nice. Surah Al-Baqarah proceeds just after Surah Al-Fatiha, and it talks about the different, the believers, the disbelievers, and then also the munafiqun. Do you think that in this surah it's doing that on purpose to warn us as Muslims, although it's talking about a different nation, but it's doing it as a preventative measure that these are the characteristics and this is how you can maybe avoid it? Or is there another reason that they're doing it?
Absolutely, because Ustad Isra in the previous lesson even read out the hadith, isn't it? Was it
لا تتبعن سنن الذين من قبلكم. Yes.
There you go. You will be following the sunan, the paths of the ones who came before you. So this is not trying to improve the Jew. Yeah, this surah is to improve the ones who take the claim that they are those alladhina amanu, those who believe. You see, so what we're going to do is we're going to develop the idea of individuals. We're going to then develop the idea of what it means to be a jama'ah as of various levels, whether it's a jama'ah as a movement or a jama'ah as a nation. A jama'ah as a movement is almost really like the qualities and the values of a dawla in waiting. Yeah, it's existent within the people who are within that jama'ah. They embody the values that they want to see on a more higher scale. You see, and then you have obviously the ultimate idea of this kind of nation, right? That is ruled, and that's what happened in Medina. That's why Aisha radiallahu anha, she says, "Awwalu mawludin fil Islam, Abdullah ibn Zubayr," right? Why did she say that? She said the first born of Islam is Abdullah ibn Zubayr. This is not correct. Other people were born before Abdullah ibn Zubayr. Other Muslims were born in Mecca. Muslims were born before them. Meaning that she has done a kinaya. She said, instead of saying awwalu mawludin ba'd al-hijra or fil Medina, she said the firstborn of Islam, so as for us to think that when power and revelation became combined, this was Islam. The firstborn with Islam, where power and revelation became one, this is when he was born. He was born into Islam the way Islam sees itself, not your personalized religion. The way you have to understand that Islam views itself. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's religion has a worldview. And your one, like you and I have this thing where if someone says, I'm very pious and I'm practicing and I'm a God-fearing person, and they don't pray, come on, you're going to go, what? You don't even pray? No. Obviously there's an Asian culture. They'll say, there's no fasting without Taraweeh. It's how mothers use it. There's no fasting without Taraweeh. Yeah, right. But that's not necessarily, that's not evidence-based, right? But we know that if someone doesn't pray 5 times a day, it's very difficult for they're Muslim, right? In the majority of the schools, but you wouldn't say this person, how can he claim he's like religious if he doesn't pray 5 times a day?
Yeah.
So that's not based on I feel like a Muslim. I feel like piety. You don't know what's in my heart. You say no. If you don't pray 5 times a day, you can't really think of yourself as like, oh, this is what piety is. Similarly, when you think about the society you live in, Islam has a view towards that. It has a measurement, a miqyas, a straight line, against a crooked, and we measure ourselves according to it. And a lot of people don't measure the state of the ummah to the Furqan, which is the Quran. This Hudan linnas wal Furqan. They don't measure themselves based on the criteria of what is a good society, what is a good nation. Everybody would say, what is a good Muslim? Oh, he prays. What's a good husband and wife? Oh, they give each other their rights. What is a good family? They raise their children properly. What is a good community? The neighbors look after each other. What is a good nation, dawla, a ummah? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. What is it? We don't have, and when we think of ummah, we only think of it as we all pray Hajj together, or we all pray Jumu'ah together. We connect it to limited to the spiritual connection. So there will be probably 3 more introductions like this, because Surah Al-Baqarah just excites me that there's so much to say. But I think some of the fada'il that even though we're going to go into these detailed conversations, we're going to take from the classical, we're going to take from the contemporary tafsir, and we're going to take from the revivalist tafsir, right? So we're going to go from like Ibn Kathir and Qurtubi and Zamakhshari, and we're going to go Jalalain, and we're going to all of these. We're going to go to Ibn Ashur, Tahrir wa Tanwir, but we're going to go to Maulana Maududi, we're going to go to Sayyid Qutb Shahid, we're going to go through a range of tafsir so that we can, so the fada'il is more of a kind of the way we want to set our foundations. And I believe Ustada wanted to cover the fada'il, and I think that's probably all we have time for today. So I defer to my sister Ustada Isra for the rest, inshallah.
Yes, Jazakallah khair, Ustad. Yeah, I really like the point where you said about the ummah, that we don't think about how the Quran is applied as an ummah. We only think about it as like individuals, and it's very true that it's not something we reflect on. And maybe we kind of lost hope, maybe as an ummah, as being like something for the Quran to actually be alive in our lives and actually have like a nation state. But going to the fada'il, one of the Surah Al-Baqarah, I think one of the known, I think, fada'il or hadith about Surah Al-Baqarah is that when you read it, if you read Surah Al-Baqarah, لا تستطيعها البطلة, and the shaitan won't enter your house. And I think it's every 3 days. I think the known hadith about the surah, right? That is that if you read Surah Al-Baqarah inside your house, if you read it, then your house would be protected from the shayateen for 3 days. And it's recommended, I think, every 3 days to be read. And one of the other fada'il of Surah Al-Baqarah is the hadith that says, the Prophet ﷺ said, لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَنَامٌ وَإِنَّ سَنَامَ الْقُرْآنِ Surah Al-Baqarah, meaning that for everything there is a hump, and the hump of the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah.
Ustad, you mean like a hump for people who are listening, more like a khidma, like a peak of a mountain or something?
Yes, it's like, the pinnacle, yes. The hump, yes, is like the most, you can say the most, the top, you can say top, yes, the top of the jabal. But the hadith that says لِكُلِّ شَيْءٍ سَنَامٌ وَإِنَّ سَنَامَ الْقُرْآنِ Surah Al-Baqarah, meaning that for the Quran, like the top or the qimma in the Quran is Surah Al-Baqarah. And in it, there is an ayah. And why? We might ask even why. So in the Quran, it says in the hadith, it says, وَفِيهَا آيَةٌ هِيَ سَيِّدَةُ آيِ الْقُرْآنِ هِيَ آيَةُ الْكُرْسِي, meaning in the Surah Al-Baqarah, we have Ayat al-Kursi, which is the greatest ayah of the Quran, as we know from like various hadith. And it's the master or the greatest ayah in the Quran. And yes, Ayat al-Kursi, we all know like how it is the greatest surah in the Quran. And there's also another hadith related to something I mentioned before. It's that لا تجعلوا بيوتكم مقابر وإن البيت الذي تقرأ فيه البقرة لا يدخله الشيطان. Meaning that whoever recites in his house Surah Al-Baqarah, shayateen will not enter it, as I said, for 3 days. And whoever recites it in the night, shayateen will not enter it for 3 nights. Yes. No, sorry that I did that. That's that's not the correct translation, but the translation for this hadith, لا تجعلوا بيوتكم مقابر, meaning don't turn your houses into graves, because shaitan doesn't enter the house that the Surah Al-Baqarah was recited in it. That is one of them. And one of the hadiths that I really like, it mentions about Surah Al-Baqarah and also mentions Al Imran, and it says اقرأوا الزهراوان البقرة وآل Imran, meaning read the 2 lights, Al-Baqarah and Al Imran. Why? Because on the Day of Judgment, maybe you've heard this hadith before, that both of these surahs come as 2 shades or 2 lines of birds on the day of Judgment, as if it's like protection for whoever reads them. And when it says اقرأوا الزهراوان, Zahrawan meaning the mufrad, like the singular word of Zahrawan is Zahra. Zahra meaning something that is very intensely light, like intense light. So if you imagine someone, I think there was someone who explained this, and he said, imagine the Quran as if it's a sky full of stars. And Surah Al-Baqarah and Al Imran are like the 2 most lighting stars in the sky. So it's like the Quran is the protection, it's like the sky, and there's lots of stars. And Surah Al-Baqarah and Al Imran are the 2 most lighting, you can say, stars in the sky. And
most
that's why they
luminous
also
lights.
most luminous, yes, lighting on in the sky. And that's why they come on the Day of Judgment as protection, as like 2 shades or 2 flocks of birds, like covering you, protecting you on the Day of Judgment. That's one of like the also very known fadail of Surah.
I find it interesting, bro. I find interesting that it's mentioned, don't make your houses graves. You see? So it shows that, a grave is, place of morbid, dead, of course.
Yes.
Lifeless. There's no real color. You look at the smell that you'd see, and all of these things. Subhanallah, this is what happens to a house that's void of Quran.
The Quran, yes.
That, people are decorating their houses, putting Quran on the wall. People are, thinking about decor. I think one of the greatest things that you can have as to decorate your house is through spiritual protection. And I believe that just mentioning the recitation of Surah Al-Baqarah is obviously one thing, but it's also the meaning, because again, we need to revisit this idea that reciting means, Sheikh Akram says it very nicely. He says only the Muslims today have changed the word reading to mean not understanding it while saying it. No one on earth has ever thought that reading is to not understand something. If someone says in any language, have you read Shakespeare? Have you read Chaucer? No one would say yes if they did not understand it, right? Reading means to read to understand. So there could be Wallahu ta'ala a'lam, other benefits in the fact that because of what you've understood about the clear and distinct identities, that in itself is a protection as opposed to just being merely that you've chanted it and that this gives you protection. We know there's shifa in the Quran anyway. That's not, we're not thinking. But we'll say that why limit it to this when actually the words themselves, right, their meanings, people write it and then they write it on paper and they dip it in water and they drink the water and they ta'weez and everything else. But what I'm saying is that there are protections of reciting it, no doubt about that. But we also have to think about what's so particular about this surah that could protect a home. What could protect your family? That's what we're going to discover in this series of this.
There's, I think that it says, I think so. Someone mentioned, I think a scholar before mentioned that why Surah Al-Baqarah and Al Imran, because he said they contain ahkam and asma of Allah, like they contain ahkam in the Sharia, and there's also lots of names of Allah mentioned. So he said both of them, these together, they create the light for, like, obviously, like when understanding its meanings and like obviously also applying it, but understanding both of these aspects of these 2 surahs is what brings like the light and the protection. And there's also, I remembered, there's I think you mentioned it to me, Ustad, before, that there's the Prophet ﷺ, when they would go into battle, he would come and ask the companions, who of you knows Surah Al-Baqarah? Meaning, obviously the companions, they would not only know Surah, they would like have it memorized and also understand its meanings, ahkam, as you mentioned. So he would go in within the battlefield, and he'd ask the Sahaba, like, which one of you knows Surah Al-Baqarah? So one of them, if one of them said, oh, I know Surah Al-Baqarah, he would say, or you are now the Amir of this ghazwa, like you're now the Amir. And so that it shows like how Surah Al-Baqarah, like it's important and have like understanding its meaning, understanding the ahkam, understanding what the surah contains. It actually gives you even this. There's a hadith, I don't know all of it, but it says whoever knows Surah Al-Baqarah, like it used to be before between amongst the companions, whoever knew Surah Al-Baqarah, they would say that jadda fi a'yunina, meaning he would be looked upon as something high in our eyes for anyone who knew Surah Al-Baqarah or who understood Surah Al-Baqarah. So it's, yes, the surah has lots of, subhanAllah, it's in Arabic, it's named al-Mudi'a and al-Mani'a, which is like the protector, the luminous light. It has lots of.
It's a great way for developing leaders.
Yes.
Leadership development. Anyone interested in leadership, people writing all these books about self-help and leadership and everything, and basically borrowing from corporate self-help books and all of these, and then throwing in a few ayat. I've noticed this in many books that I've seen and read. What we have is, well, this is the Quran actually developing the leadership mind. So anyone who's interested in becoming any form of leader in the home, in a community, in any form, should really be knowing their Surah Al-Baqarah. They should know this Mia of Al-Baqarah, this 100 of Al-Baqarah, inshallah.
Inshallah, yes, yeah. And yeah, we should, it's the, as it's mentioned before, like it's the light and the protection, and we should as application for today, it's like something that it should be read at our homes, like every couple of days. Even sometimes if you can't read it every day or every 3 days, you can read it every week. It's always something good to go on, and obviously also understanding the meanings and the ahkam and everything in the surah. But I think for today that would be our introduction for Surah Al-Baqarah. Inshallah, we'll see in the next classes what more in detail and depth, inshallah.
Inshallah. Jazakumullah khair to yourself, Ustada Isra, and also yourself, Ustad Moinul, for giving us an in-depth introduction into Surah Al-Baqarah. It's been an interesting one. Knowing that, Surah Al-Baqarah is not just something that should be recited as a form of protection, but if you really delve deep into the ayahs of the Surah Al-Baqarah, you will understand what its actual meaning is and how we can actually apply that into our lives. And I like how you mentioned, Ustad Moinul, about, where it talks about the different the different kind of, if you'd like to say, archetypes in terms of like being a believer, a disbeliever, a munafiqun, and how you can protect yourself from that. And also
those are interesting. Those are interesting for those who want to become counselors and psychologists. These are the three major archetypes of human being, and then everything else is the grays and details in between. So it's very
absolutely
interesting.
And I think this is something that is really, really crucial for even children in the madrasa, because if they nail this surah, their whole life would be, ahead of them, inshallah.
Leaders.
Yeah, absolutely. They'll be leaders, but there'll be a lot more fruition, inshallah. So Jazakumullah khair to you both once again. Jazakumullah khair to all of the viewers today. And inshallah, until next time, until tomorrow, assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.